The Trump administration has dramatically shifted its immigration strategy, now placing a renewed and aggressive focus on locating and arresting undocumented immigrants who are already living within the United States. This marks a significant departure from previous approaches, which often concentrated resources on border enforcement and recent arrivals. Now, the administration is not just targeting those attempting to cross the border illegally, but is also prioritizing interior enforcement, meaning people who may have lived in the country for years are now at risk. This intensified focus has led to a sharp increase in ICE arrests nationwide, resulting in overcrowded detention centers and a growing backlog in immigration courts. The surge has sparked widespread protests, especially in states with large immigrant populations, as communities rally to support their neighbors and demand changes to federal policy. Unlike previous policies that mainly targeted individuals with criminal records, the new approach casts a much wider net. Now, anyone without legal status, regardless of their criminal history, length of residency, or deep community ties, can be subject to arrest and deportation. This has left many families living in constant fear, unsure if they will be separated from loved ones at any moment. The administration has set ambitious goals, aiming to deport millions of undocumented immigrants. Federal agencies are under intense pressure to ramp up arrests, speed up removals, and process cases more quickly than ever before, straining resources and raising concerns about due process. Supporters of the policy hail it as the largest mass deportation effort in U.S. history, arguing that it restores the rule of law and protects American jobs. Critics, however, warn that it creates widespread fear and uncertainty, tearing families apart and undermining the fabric of entire communities. The message from the administration is unmistakable. No undocumented person is safe from enforcement actions, no matter how long they have lived in the country, how much they have contributed, or how deeply they are rooted in their communities. This marks a fundamental shift in the government's posture on immigration, with officials citing national security and the need to uphold the rule of law as primary justifications for the crackdown. The policy has also prompted legal challenges and calls for congressional action. As a result, immigration enforcement has become one of the most defining and divisive issues of our time, reshaping the lives of millions of people and fueling a heated national debate about what it means to be American, the limits of government power, and the future of immigration policy in the United States. Americans are deeply divided over Trump's deportation push, with the issue sparking passionate reactions on both sides of the political spectrum. For many, immigration is not just a policy question, but a deeply personal and emotional topic that touches on national identity, security, and the country's core values. Support for stricter enforcement is strongest among Republicans, who often view the policy as a necessary step to protect the nation's borders and ensure public safety. They argue that strong action is needed to uphold the rule of law and prevent illegal entry, seeing it as a matter of national security and economic stability. However, approval for these measures drops sharply when enforcement actions target families or long-term residents, especially those without criminal records. Many Americans, regardless of party, are uncomfortable with the idea of separating families or detaining people who have built lives in the U.S. for years. There is widespread concern about fairness and the risk of mistakenly detaining legal residents or even U.S. citizens. These worries cross party lines as people fear that aggressive enforcement could lead to innocent individuals being caught up in the system, eroding trust in government institutions. Democrats and immigration advocates often call the policy cruel and inhumane, arguing that it punishes vulnerable people and undermines America's reputation as a nation of immigrants. In contrast, Republicans and their supporters defend the approach as a matter of enforcing existing laws, emphasizing the need for order and the importance of secure borders to maintain national sovereignty. These starkly different perspectives have led to protests and counter-protests erupting in cities across the country, with both sides mobilizing to make their voices heard in the ongoing debate. The debate is further fueled by concerns over due process, the rights of individuals, and the human cost of enforcement. Stories of families being separated or individuals facing deportation after decades in the U.S. have made immigration one of the most emotionally charged and contentious issues in American politics today. Public support for tough immigration policies is often abstract. When Americans are confronted with the real-life impact on families and communities, many begin to hesitate or reconsider their views, revealing the complexity and nuance of public opinion. the political divide over immigration shows no sign of narrowing. As lawmakers and citizens continue to clash over the best path forward, immigration remains firmly at the center of the national debate, shaping elections, policy, and the country's future. Despite President Trump's tough rhetoric on immigration and promises of mass deportations, his administration's deportation numbers at first closely mirrored those under President Biden. In the early years, the actual number of removals was not dramatically higher than what we saw during the Biden administration, even though the public perception was often different due to the administration's strong messaging and high-profile enforcement actions. However, in recent months, there's been a noticeable and sharp increase in deportations, signaling a shift in enforcement priorities and operational tempo. In April, for example, ICE removals surged by 29% compared to the previous year, marking the first time Trump-era figures have surpassed those recorded during Biden's presidency. This uptick has drawn attention from both supporters and critics. Still, even with this recent increase, deportations remain far below the record highs set during the Obama administration. In 2012, President Obama oversaw more than 400,000 removals, a figure that still stands as the modern benchmark for immigration enforcement. The current administration has set ambitious targets for removals, and while resources and the number of deportation flights have increased, these goals have yet to be fully realized. Logistical challenges and legal hurdles continue to slow progress. Unlike Obama's focus on border apprehensions, Trump's strategy emphasizes interior enforcement, targeting individuals who have lived in the U.S. for years and have deep ties to their communities. This approach marks a significant shift in enforcement philosophy. As a result, deportations under Trump have become more disruptive to families, often leading to the separation of parents and children. This has fueled both public outrage and political backlash, with protests and heated debates across the country. While the administration's operational reality still lags behind its promises, the overall trend in deportations is clearly upward, suggesting that enforcement efforts are intensifying. Ultimately, the distinction between border removals and interior enforcement not only shapes the deportation numbers, but also influences the national conversation and response to immigration policy in the United States. Trump's strategy relies on aggressive enforcement deep inside the U.S., not just at the border. ICE now targets undocumented immigrants in communities nationwide, driving up arrests and filling detention centers. The administration has reassigned federal agents and expanded programs that let local police act as immigration officers, multiplying ICE's reach. This approach compensates for any drop in border arrests, keeping deportation numbers high. High-profile raids send a message of deterrence, but critics say they create fear and erode trust in law enforcement. The debate over these tactics is central to the controversy surrounding Trump's immigration agenda. The new strategy marks a dramatic shift in how immigration laws are enforced across the country. To support mass deportations, the administration seeks to double detention capacity, a logistical necessity for increased arrests. Trump has requested a major budget boost from Congress to build new facilities, hire more officers, and speed up deportation cases. The push for more detention space faces fierce opposition from immigrant advocates and Democrats, who cite poor conditions and legal concerns. Funding battles in Congress will determine the scale of the deportation effort. If Congress balks, the administration may reallocate funds or further streamline deportations, raising new legal questions. The fight over resources is a key battleground for the future of Trump's immigration policy. The outcome will shape how far and how fast the administration can pursue its goals. Alongside forced removals, Trump is pushing a large-scale self-deportation campaign, urging undocumented immigrants to leave voluntarily. Policies make it harder to work, find housing, or access services, aiming to pressure people to depart on their own. Despite intense messaging, few are leaving. Most have deep roots and families in the U.S. The administration hoped self-deportation would ease the burden on enforcement, but results have been limited. The strategy relies on making life difficult enough to prompt departures, but for many, ties to the U.S. outweigh the pressure. As voluntary departures lag, the administration leans more on costly and controversial forced removals. The campaign highlights the limits of psychological and social pressure as a tool for mass deportation. Americans are split on whether mass deportations will help or hurt the economy. Many fear labor shortages in industries like agriculture and construction, arguing that immigrants fill essential jobs. Supporters believe removing undocumented workers could open jobs for citizens and raise wages, but polls show more people worry about negative impacts. Economic uncertainty fuels skepticism about the policy's broader effects. Proposed legislation adds confusion, with few clear answers on long-term outcomes. Economists warn that sudden mass removals could disrupt supply chains, raise consumer costs, and shrink the tax base. The loss of millions of consumers would ripple through the economy, causing significant disruption. Economic concerns remain a powerful argument against the administration's deportation plan. The Trump administration faces huge challenges in meeting its deportation goals, from logistical hurdles to legal battles and limited resources. Securing more funding from Congress is uncertain, especially with strong resistance from sanctuary cities and states. Deputizing local law enforcement has met fierce opposition, complicating efforts to expand enforcement. Despite rising deportation numbers, the pace still falls short of the administration's targets. The long-term impact on communities, the economy, and the nation's political climate remains unclear. Deep skepticism persists about whether the administration can achieve its aims amid ongoing resistance. The outcome will shape the future of U.S. immigration policy and the country's social fabric. Trump's mass deportation plan marks a dramatic shift in U.S. immigration enforcement, moving the focus from the border to the interior. The strategy combines forced removals with self-deportation campaigns, backed by expanded detention and funding requests. The policy has ignited fierce debate, dividing Americans along partisan lines and raising concerns about fairness, family impact, and economic fallout. Despite increased removals, the administration's targets remain elusive, hampered by legal, financial, and political obstacles. Resistance from sanctuary jurisdictions and Congress continues to slow the effort. This policy will leave a lasting mark on American society, shaping debates about identity, security, and humanitarian values for years to come. The consequences, intended and unintended, will define the legacy of this era in immigration policy.